Do you guys see where it's saying that we're going live? Oh, it says it for me.
Yes.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is November 17th, so that means it is World Prematurity Day. But of course, in our community, we truly want to spend today focusing on the Black community and how prematurity impacts our families and our communities, and of course, our amazing, powerful premature babies. So without further ado, I'd just like to briefly introduce myself, and I'll allow my panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with a really brief 30-minute candleside chat about Black prematurity awareness and support in our community. So I'm Vanessa Vassall. I represent Black Millennials for Flint. You can follow us at Black Millennials for Flint on IG. We're also on Twitter. I think we're BM4F on Twitter. And of course, we would love for everyone to subscribe here on YouTube. This is our first time doing a live. And we would not have been here today if it wasn't for the wonderful Ana Rodney from Mom Cares in Baltimore. And so I'll allow her to introduce herself and introduce our fantastic guest today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ana Rodney, and I am the Executive Director of Mom Cares, also the CEO of the Rising Mama lifestyle brand, and also Aiden's mom. So Mom Cares is an organization that supports Black women in particular who are navigating high-risk pregnancy and NICU involvement after negative outcomes in birth. We also support moms in the postpartum, and we do a number of different things in the community to help uplift the voice of Black women in the medical system and the need for support around correcting the crisis that is the Black maternal health crisis and the Black infant health crisis. So that is me. You can find us at momcares_Baltimore on IG. You can also put that in your Facebook and we pop up. And we are on Twitter at momcares_Balt. We have a number of things that we support and do in the Baltimore community, so check us out. And so then I'm going to introduce Miss Carrita Flie, who is the founder of the P2 Project, also new author of I'm Still Here, and mama to a wonderfully strong preemie grad. I'll let her talk a little bit more. We're all going to get to know each other in this candleside chat. But yes, so welcome. We are excited to jump into this conversation, building awareness around prematurity awareness, which is what we're spending today looking at.
Hi, everyone. I'm Carrita Flie, founder of the P2 Project. I founded the P2 Project after I gave birth to my son, Isaac, at 26 weeks, just kind of based off my experience of being a micro-preemie mom, specifically in the Black community, and the lack of resources that were there, the support that I felt like I needed, the information that was not there, the other women who kind of did not really share their stories. I felt like that was something that was kind of taboo in the Black community. No one really talks about having a preemie, or, don't really talk about your baby being in the hospital. It's kind of like, wait till they come home, you don't tell anybody that you had your baby early. Like, it's just kind of one of those things. And so I wanted to create a safe space for families to provide that support and create a space to talk about it and uplift each other and know that, this is something that we can all navigate and get through together.
Absolutely. I really appreciate that. And did you also want to tell everybody a little bit about your book?
Oh, yes. So I wrote the book to talk about my story a little bit because I'm also someone who suffered with recurring miscarriages prior to having my son, which also, as a young Black woman, is something that's not really talked about a lot. And so my pregnancy was also high risk. So all of that, kind of dealing with all that as a young Black woman in a world where that is such a taboo subject and we don't talk about those kind of things, led me to the work that I'm doing now, writing my book, founding the P2 Project to help other young women get through these things in life and kind of educate each other, support each other, and hopefully get better at these things.
Thank you so much. And there'll be a link below so that you can support Carrita Flie and learn more about her journey and purchase her book online. So I'll make sure that that link is in the description along with everybody's social media information so that everyone can follow everyone. So without further ado, I'll just get this conversation started. We found that it was going to be very important today to talk about racial disparities and inequities. I'll more so say inequities than disparities, because disparities are something that you can't necessarily address, but inequities are something that needs to be addressed through systemic change. And over the last couple of years, 2016 to 2018, the United States saw that Black babies had twice as high of rates of preterm birth at about 14% than their white counterparts, than white babies. And that's particularly dangerous because prematurity and low birth weight is the second leading cause of infant death and preventable infant death among Black babies. I hate to have to share these statistics. I hate that we're even in this point. And for mothers and families, this type of information can be very scary and very overwhelming. And so for you all, do you mind sharing your experience? And also, how do you feel that Black families can embrace some of the scary information as a turning point and a new start, as opposed to fearing these statistics? And of course, please feel free to share about support that you gained or resources out there to help families that maybe are expecting an early baby or just want more information.
Ana, you
Sure,
can go first.
I can start. So that's a mouthful. But so I will add that here in Baltimore, we are really seeing that there has been, from the health department, there has been an inclination to throw support out there, education, and really kind of push the idea around making sure that our babies are making it to their first year and beyond. And what we're seeing is two things. We're seeing that the numbers locally are going down, but we're also seeing that the disparity is widening. And so what that says to us is that there is an issue around bias that is informing the work that's happening. And that information, that care, that support is still not making it to Black families in the way that it needs to make sure that we are being positively affected by these campaigns that are happening throughout the city. And so it is definitely very scary. I can share just shortly with me. My son was diagnosed with intrauterine growth restriction after I was in a very stressful pregnancy for a number of different reasons. My blood pressure was constantly elevated and kind of uncontrolled. And that meant that my blood pressure being elevated meant that the blood that was meant to get to the baby, the blood vessels that were meant to get to Aiden to get him what he needed, were consistently constricted and did not get to him the way they needed to. So he was not growing at the rate that he needed to. He was born at 28 weeks at 1 pound and 5 ounces. At that gestation, he should have probably been closer to 2 pounds. And so we spent a very long time in the NICU. We spent about 6 months in the NICU. And so in that time, I've been a birth worker for 13 years. And in that time, my idea was, oh, well, I'm a birth worker. I've got birth community. We're going to make it. People are going to rally and we're going to be fine. But what I realized was that, unfortunately, at that time in the birth community, everybody was talking about natural birth. Everybody is breast is best, natural birth, vaginal is best. And so there really wasn't a network of support for outcomes that did not mirror that ideology. And so I don't think that any mom that is in the NICU, that any mom that has an emergency C-section goes into the hospital and says, you know, screw what other people think, or screw what is natural, or screw what is best, I'm going to do it this way. These are emergency situations which are causing trauma and pain to entire family units, in which we really need to encircle these women and encircle these families to make sure that they're getting the support that they need. And what I found was people just didn't know how to do that. And even the people that I was depending on to be able to do that, because this is their work and this is their expertise, really didn't have the language or really understanding, because we really want to just focus on like, this is the way you're supposed to do it and this is the right way. And so while we want to make sure that we are being as positive in our view and expectation and discussion of birth, we also need to be prepared and educated for things that can happen and how we can support those people who have less than stellar birth outcomes and who are not having the births that they want. Because I don't know if I've ever met anyone who said, I wanted to have a baby in NICU, I wanted to have an emergency C-section, I wanted to have a traumatic birth. So, you know, so that is actually where Mom Cares came from, because I had 6 months to realize what I needed and what I wasn't getting, and and the way I wanted people to talk to me and the way people were actually talking to me. And so after my son came home and I got comfortable with taking care of him without having to ask doctors for permission to interact with him, without having to ask nurses for an update on how he was during the day or how he was at night, having complete autonomy as a mother, which was very much halted at birth for me. After I got used to that, then I decided to get to the work of figuring out what this organization, what this idea was going to turn into, which turned into Mom Cares, which is a doula program. I think that we really should employ some of the same principles that we employ around grief. And I think also as a community, we still struggle with handling grief as well. But really understanding that there's nothing you can say to make it better, and that is not your job as a support person. Your job is to hold space. Your job is to be there. Your job is to listen and to react to the family, to the mother, to the individual in the way that they are saying and communicating they need. And so sometimes that just means sitting there. Sometimes that means just, you know, and so also when we do our trainings, we do NICU trainings for our doulas that go into the NICU. I'm always very adamant to say, we're not ever going to tell a mom it's going to be okay, because this situation in itself is not okay. And so we don't want to put ourselves in a situation in which we are making promises or setting up expectations that could be even more traumatic if they don't come to fruition. But what we do focus on is the mom's ability to make it through, the mom's tenacity and her spirit and her strength, and the fact that she has support, and the fact that she has people around her. We focus on that. We focus on her beauty. We focus on her love for her child. We affirm her love for her child. We affirm her strength and being able to show up and be there. But we very much shy away. And I would say, if I had one thing to say, is to never say, oh, it's going to be okay, or oh, you can do it again, or oh, there's a, you know, you'll have another baby. Like, those things do not wipe away the very specific heartache of having a baby prematurely and having a child in the throes of survival so early.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
That was
Carrita,
so
do you
good.
want to chat as well?
Yes, and you hit on so many good points. And I mean, like, that was a mouthful, but it was all so good. And I'm sitting here like, yes, that was so awesome. I'm like, yes, I want to clap over here. That was so good. But you know, the one thing that you touched on in the beginning that I felt like was really good was that there are, you know, resources and more information about, you know, premature birth and things like that that are just not really hitting our community for whatever reason, you know, and that's a big thing for me. And even sometimes I think when it does kind of, the information does sort of get to our community, it's like we kind of don't want to talk about it. It's kind of one of those things where like, oh, I'm just going to think positive. You know, it's like, oh, it's going to be okay. We're going to have this full-term baby. And then, you know, God forbid, when it happens to you, you're completely blindsided. and you have no clue what to expect, no clue what to do. And it's like, now you're lost. And so while no one wants to be in the NICU, no one wants to have, an emergency C-section, like Ana said, you don't want to be in that situation. It's best to be educated on it, in the event that it does happen. No, you don't want it to happen. But for me, because I was a high-risk pregnancy, at 21 weeks, I had received an emergency cervical cerclage. So they had stitched my cervix closed to try to get me full term. But my son clearly, wanted to do what he wanted to do. So he still came at 26 weeks. But at that point, once I got my cerclage, even though I wanted to go full term, that was the hope, I started doing my research. Okay, what's considered viability? How many weeks is considered viability? What happens when a baby is born at, 22 weeks or 23 weeks, 24 weeks, things like that. While I did not want that to be my reality, I also didn't want to go in there completely blindsided either. And it was also during that time where I kind of experienced my first issue with what I feel like was racial disparity in the medical field. It was one particular hospital that I went to for maybe 3 or 4 days in a row. I told the same doctor, I'm like, something is not right. I don't feel okay. Like my baby, he's moving, but something's just not right. And there was a nurse that said to me, you can't keep coming here every time you think something's wrong with your baby. And to this day, I remember her name, her voice, her face. Like, there are things like that you just don't forget. The next day, I went to a different hospital where I knew I would get better care because I had been there before. I had been cared for there before. I was already 6 centimeters dilated and they could feel my son's foot. And she was like, you're about to have an emergency C-section like right now. Is there anybody else that you want to get here before we take you back because you have to go back? And it was just in that moment that it was like reality hit me. I was like, that doctor and that nurse didn't think I knew what I was talking about. Like they just blatantly ignored everything that I've been telling them for a week and constantly sending me home because they felt like I didn't know what I was talking about. And as Black women, we need to know how to use our voice. And, that comes with being educated. That comes with being knowing, what to say and know what we're feeling. And, our, the points of pregnancy where, okay, this means that I'm probably in labor. If I'm feeling this, if I'm feeling that, I'm not a birth worker like Ana, but, like I said, I did my personal research because I knew, what I had experienced, the previous losses, the high-risk pregnancy. And so I knew what was coming already. And going to that other hospital, I got myself to that point where I was like, listen, I know what I'm feeling. And that doctor listened to me because I was adamant and I used my voice and I spoke up for myself. And I feel like a lot of times that can make a difference, even in the NICU, even with those doctors and nurses, because sometimes it's the same way. They feel like we don't know what we're talking about. We don't know what we're doing. It's all the nurses. If you sit in the NICU long enough, you'll realize the nurses will talk to the white moms completely different than the Black moms. And, the interactions are different. The language is different. It's almost like, they have to dumb things down for us. And it's like, no, we're not doing that. And so that's where, when I started the P2 project, it was for me to educate other moms, not only to, what prematurity is and what to expect, but how to use your voice and be an advocate for your child, because that's how we've gotten so many things solved for my son. He has a lot of medical complexities. He's had, brain surgery and things like that. And it was all because I was able to say, something's not right. And I'm not going to walk out of here with you guys telling me he's fine. Because you have this young Black mom and you're just like, oh, she's fine, whatever. We're not going to keep wasting our time with this. No, you're going to listen to what I'm saying. And I think that's a big thing that comes, like I said, comes with being, educated on what we need to know. So while no one wants to end up here, let's be educated on it. Let's be knowledgeable about what can happen. Let's support one another in this area so that if you ever do find yourself in that seat, you're prepared. You know what to expect from it. And while it is a roller coaster ride, it's completely unpredictable. We were in the NICU for 4 months and it was all over the place. But it was one of those things where it was like, okay, I know what I didn't have. I know what I needed. I knew, what I wanted to provide for other moms. And another thing that Ana touched on is not ever saying that it's going to be okay. Because that is one of those things where people always just want to tell you, oh, you're going to be fine. Your baby's going to come home and it'll be okay. And sometimes that is the case. Sometimes it's not. And so as a NICU support person or NICU advocate, you have to be careful with that, language, with the things that you're saying to people. And while you want to be there and you want to be super helpful, you don't want to also say the wrong thing, because we're already all over the place with our emotions. I mean, you're trying to do the best you can. And everyone's situation is different too. Some people have other kids at home. And I didn't, but I can't imagine having to take care of other kids and then have a kid in the NICU for 4 months. And so you do want to be careful with that. But my takeaway from that would be definitely just try to educate yourself and know the disparities in your specific area as well, your state, because everywhere is different. And everywhere is different for different reasons. So definitely education is very key.
I really appreciate you sharing everything that you just shared, especially when you talk about, both of you, when you really talk about, what a mother's responsibility is when it comes to getting information, becoming educated, and the type of support that you both advocated for yourself. But for some moms, they may not know how to get that support or where to look, especially if it's something as simple as Google. You're going to have a million things that are going to come up. And like I mentioned before, a lot of that information can be very overwhelming and scary. And so for you all, how can you share with families how to advocate for themselves, maybe how to get a birth worker to support them and get more information? And where did you find in your community or at your hospital or at home, what was the best place or resources or ways to find support? I really want, in addition to awareness, for us to give families some strategies and some tips on how they can find that support so that they don't feel so alone.
I can say that, and I don't know if this is the same, but I know that since 2014, which is 6 years ago, yeesh, since 2014, the landscape around care and support for families that have these type of outcomes has changed drastically. Even if you look on like IG or Facebook, like the faces and the voices seem to have started to emerge around 2014. And so there are online groups where you can go online on Facebook and just be a part of community. There are also a number of different online pages on IG. I would say to really challenge and ask your hospital social worker that is assigned to you about the resources. I did want to go back to something that was said before around like this idea that you don't know what's going on with your body. And so when you think about these stories that you're seeing in the news and things like, I went to the hospital 5 times, and like we scream about Black girl magic and our divinity and how amazing we are, and I think pulling that reality from just this area over here into our current reality, into our bodies as we're birthing, knowing, one of the things that I said, and it might not have been in the best spirits when I said it, was I told the doctor, I said, I am my son's home. My son was in my body for 7 months. Like, he regulates to my heartbeat. He regulates to my temperament when I come in the room. And that is something that should be acknowledged and respected. And so as much as we can snap back and, clap back, because we got it. We always have had it, right? And so as much as we use that, we really have to stand in our power as mothers to be able to use our voice. And I understand that it is a rough time, and that that you might not feel like it, you might be tired, you might be like, I shouldn't have to work this hard. And all of those things are true. But we all know that when it comes to our babies, we do what we need to do, whether it's comfortable or not. And so really understanding that there is no one in this world who has been with your body longer than you. Maybe your mama, because the eggs was in her, but like outside of that, you are the one who has been with your body as it has emerged and developed and evolved. And so you get to say, no, this is how I feel. We need to check it. And so I know that as a birth worker, having someone there, and so it might not be a doula, it might be your girlfriend or your neighbor or your cousin down, that's like, oh girl, I'm gonna come with you and sit with you. Somebody who is an extra voice, because I have seen where one of my clients has said, oh, well, the doctor said this and they were terrible to me. And then I walk in the room at the next visit and they're completely different and professional and sharing information and all of this other stuff. And so we need a second pair of eyes to make sure that we're able to hold people accountable. Also making sure that whatever people are telling you, you're requesting that it be added to your chart. You can tell me all the craziness you want to. When I say it needs to be added to my chart, then you start to second guess what you're telling me. So again, making sure that there are these spaces of accountability. I will say that as a birth worker, there are, and again, I think it's kind of this influx of like desire to wanting to return back to the work, is that there are constantly women who are going through certification who need to provide the service at a free or low cost to mothers. So becoming aware of those communities as well online, and other spaces and places. And some hospitals do have programs. I'll suspend my comment, but there are hospitals you can ask if they have doula programs as well. But yeah, I've talked way too much, so I'm gonna
Oh,
pass
no
it.
such thing, Queen. We love your wisdom. There's no, I can sit here and listen to you talk
So
forever.
I'll just add to that. No, I agree. I feel like my main resource was probably like online social media. That's how I found Mom Cares. I'm in Chicago, but that was one of
I'm
the
gonna get
first.
there.
Yes. That was like one of the first programs I found with Mom Cares, just through like Instagram or Facebook. I can't remember, but sometimes Googling, I feel like you do find a million and one things. But for me, it's been like social media, really, just finding that support because, like Ana said, it is an emergent thing that we're all kind of just coming out to share our stories and share our babies with the world. And things that we've overcome and what our babies have overcome. So I think that is a great resource, and I love social media for that. And also hospitals, like Ana said, it's not always very public, the programs that they have. So you do have to do a little pulling teeth sometimes, but the services are there. And so you make it known that you want those services, like even lactation specialists, things like that. It's not always made known that they have that. So ask, talk to the social worker, talk to the nurses, ask them what you need, things like that. Because most hospitals do have programs like that. It's just that they're probably overwhelmed with other things and not really trying to let you know that they have those things for whatever reason. So let them know that I know this program exists and I would like those services. So yeah, that's definitely one thing. Again, education. Educate yourself on what your hospital has and what you're eligible for, and ask for it.
I'm really glad that you both shared all of those tips, because those are, I think, pretty simple and straightforward enough. And for those who are watching, some of them already follow our organizations. And so they can continue to follow us and share and get information, at least from just the three of us, to get more information in their communities. You all are, we have Baltimore, Chicago in the building. I represent a DC organization. I'm actually in rainy Seattle right now. So, I'm bi-coastal when it comes to sharing resources. And I really love what Ana said about birth workers that need their certification, because a lot of times when moms, especially Black moms, we start to hear about doulas and midwives, we kind of get into our heads about what that looks like, and lactation coaching as well. And sometimes we start to think, oh, that's for white people, not realizing, nah, we've been doing this for literally centuries before them, before somebody even called it, doula care. We've been doing this for our mamas, our neighbors, and of course, once, we got here, they stole us over here on the ships. We were doing it for white folks. And so we have to remember that, you don't have to think that you have to have a lot of money, because it may be someone who says, it says, I want to do this for you. It says, this is your baby shower gift. I think a great baby shower gift is a doula. Baby shower gift is potentially, resources to get midwifery care, if that's a desire. And I also wanted to kind of tie together some comments about things kind of happening in secret. And I think that's a beautiful part of us engaging more on social media and on the web, especially now that we're all sheltering in place, is that word of mouth is still passing through our community. And when it comes to preterm babies, so, a preterm birth is a baby that came before 37 weeks. Some of our powerful preemies come as early as 22 weeks. And those, excuse me, that's on the rise. Over the past 5 years, babies coming early has been increasing. And so I say that because, this isn't something for a mom to feel like she's alone about, or something for a mom to feel like it's rare, it's only me, it's nothing to be ashamed of. We have 33 powerful preemies being born, 33,000 preemies born every month in the United States. And so there are supports there, because there are so many babies that are just anxious and ready and impatient, and they just got to get here. They got things to do and people to see and a story to tell. And so I just wanted to add a little encouragement on the end there, that there are doula resources that are available, inexpensive or free, and that and like you said, just our organizations is a good place to start. So without further ado, because we are getting to our time, our 30 minutes that we wanted to do today, does anyone have anything else that you'd like to share? If you have any upcoming announcements or something going on in your community, it can be related to prematurity, or it can just be related to Black motherhood and families, that you want to share with our followers and our subscribers, so that we can get that information and resources out there.
I do not have anything to add, so.
Well, can you at least add more of how they can follow you? I think we put your IG, but please
Yes.
just say it out to the folks.
Yes, absolutely. So on Instagram, I am at the P2 Project. And on Facebook, it is the Premium Promise Project on Facebook.
Premium Promise Project. And I'll make sure that link is in the description as well.
Perfect.
Ana, do you have any good news for our good people?
I do.
Of course.
So, just a reminder for those who are local to Baltimore City, Mom Cares is currently providing deliveries of baby care and household essentials. So if you are running low or unable to get to the store, or just need a little bit of support, we can hook you up with some TP, some paper towels, some diapers, some wipes, hand sanitizer, detergent, bleach, breastfeeding supplies. And so that link, I'll make sure that we send that out for those who are local to Baltimore City. We don't have the capacity to send it nationwide quite yet, but we're working on it. And then at the top of the year in January 2021, we will be relaunching our healing circles. We have gotten our sea legs with this COVID virtual platforming. And so we will be relaunching the healing circles at the top of the year. And so we look forward to everyone who has access to the technology to join us around conversations around Black women, motherhood, self-care, and moving forward in our current reality. So
That's fantastic. I'm so excited that that's going to be relaunching at the top of 2021. We all are so ready for 2020 to end, that what better way to start the year than with the healing circles? That's going to
Right.
be fantastic. Exactly. You're like, let me mark my calendar right now. Uh, and I will definitely share for Black Millennials for Flint. We encourage everyone to head over to our website where we have a resource guide, both in English and Spanish, around reproductive justice and reproductive health. Um, that's our first edition. It's a goal of mine to revise it and update it with some great information for 2021. Our organization, we are a civil rights organization, the first and only created by millennials, by Black millennials, for Black millennials, to really address or promote the eradication of lead exposure in Black and Brown communities. And something that is a high risk factor for prematurity is lead exposure. And so if you live in a community where you are aware or unaware if your water or the paint in your home might have elevated levels of lead and you want to protect yourself, protect your family and your children, Black Millennials for Flint has an app where you can request your water to be tested. Specifically, if you're in the DMV area, including Baltimore and DC, and everywhere in between, please check out our website so that you can download our app on Android or on iPhone so that we can come to your home. Actually, I just said that without realizing COVID. We'll figure out what happens with COVID, but put the order in anyway. Definitely download our app so that you can get your water tested to make sure that not only that you're healthy, but that our organization can keep folks accountable that are in charge of your water, because we need to know that. And I know earlier someone mentioned hospital social workers being sometimes a good resource for information. And I'll also say, when it comes to getting your lead paint tested, public health nurses at your local health department can also help you find out if you have elevated lead during your pregnancy, before your pregnancy, or if your kids are already here, because we really want to make sure that they are growing and developing in a healthy way and protect everybody, right? Especially Black and Brown mommies and babies and daddies too. The whole
guess.
family, honey. Grandmama too, because I know she over there watching these kids and doing virtual school. So I just want to thank everyone for tuning in to our first YouTube Live. This was fantastic. I want to thank Carrita Flie from the Premium Promise Project. Of course, I want to thank our good sister, Ana Rodney from Mom Cares Baltimore. And everyone, just have a beautiful, blessed week, blessed day. And please share this link widely with friends and family to find out a little bit more about what we're observing today, which was World Prematurity Day. Thanks so much, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.